So welcome back to my live stream, everybody. Today we are going to be doing updates. We're also going to be going over several things in the case that are different things that I'm finding popular, things that people are commenting on in the comments section. And I'm just by myself today, but Gia will be back next week for our live coverage of the hearing coming up. So I'm going to just start with case updates because I just want to, again, go over what we're going to be seeing in court. There are some things that are going to be private, and then there's some things that are going to be public. And I just figured I'd bring up News Nation because they seem to be our go-to for updates on a major media platform. So this is Ashley Banfield. This is just a small clip, and she's just going to tell us a little bit about what we're going to be seeing. I have so many tabs open. I hope the internet doesn't go slow.
We could soon have a start date for one of the most anticipated murder trials of the year. On January 26th, 10 days from now, two big hearings are on the docket in Moscow, Idaho, in the case against Bryan Kohberger. The first, in the morning, is private. It's a defense motion to toss out the indictment altogether. The defense claims the grand jury process was biased. Defense claims the grand jurors were deliberately shown inadmissible and insufficient evidence. Prosecutors say that's nonsense. Second hearing is public. Yay! And it's a two-parter. The first one is going to focus on another defense motion about the supposedly tainted grand jury process. And yeah, I know, it's like Groundhog Day. The judge has already ruled against similar motions. So it is highly unlikely that Kohberger is going to see his quadruple murder charges dismissed. But you never know. Second part of the second hearing is all about the calendar. Ooh, you got me now. When is that trial going to start? The state has asked that the trial take place in the summertime. That's when the school is out, fewer people are around. Is the judge going to agree? I'm joined now by Richard Block. He's a criminal defense attorney in Idaho. 429 days ago, this murder happened. Richard Block, what are the chances we'll see a trial a year and a half from the killings? That would be this summer.
I think that really depends on what was in that DNA data that the defense just got. So just back on January 11th, the judge ordered a partial disclosure of the IgG, or investigative genetic genealogy data, to the defense. It really depends what's in that. How long it's going to take them to get through that? What else does that maybe bring up? And I'm sure right now the defense, if they've actually got it in their hands, has got it to their expert, and they're looking through it and trying to figure out what's in there.
Yeah, but here's what I think, which is like, doesn't matter. But I've watched a lot of these things, and it's amazing if you can get a single murder trial into a courtroom in a year and a half, let alone a quadruple murder trial with death penalty on the table and a crime scene that's littered with so many sources of DNA, like the Idaho house was. Do you think it's possible, even in 2024, we could see this murder trial?
I'd be surprised. I always expect it to take much more time than a year and a half. Like generally, you would think at least 2 years for any murder. But who knows? Things could go faster. Not being directly involved in the case, it's hard to tell you exactly.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, does Idaho like to prosecute fast, or is that just, it's too hard to answer that?
I think that's everywhere. All prosecutors like to move fast. They always think their case is best on day one.
Unless they have the goods. All right, Richard, thank you. I'm looking forward to this. I've never looked forward to status conferences or, scheduling conferences, but I am looking forward to this one. We'll have you back. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. So we will definitely be covering this live, and I'm going to have Gia here to give some sort of legal analysis while things are going on, and we'll be streaming off of Judge's channel. And after this live stream, I will also link his channel below so that if you want to go ahead and follow along with, follow him or subscribe to him, excuse me, you'll have that information. So before I proceed, I wanted to talk about something. Just block this really quickly. I wanted to talk about the context of the things that I'm bringing up on my channel, because there's a little bit of confusion, I think, within the true crime community that you have to pick a side when you're covering this case. So I have a lot of people trying to label me in my comment section. Sometimes people call me a guilter. Sometimes people call me a pro-burger, and I'm none of those things. I just want to objectively report the things that I see. But more importantly, I want to embrace the fact that our legal system has a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And at a certain point when I was covering this trial, I realized all I was doing was covering the evidence against BK, and that I wasn't taking that assumption of innocence seriously, which is being open to all different angles. For those who don't know, I just thought it'd be worth it to read to you what the definition of innocent until proven guilty is for you. So what I'm going to read is off of Wikipedia. And it says the presumption of innocence is a legal principle that every person accused of any crime is considered innocent until proven guilty. Under the presumption of innocence, the legal burden of proof is thus on the prosecution, which must present compelling evidence in the tier of fact and the trier of fact and a judge or a jury. If the prosecution does not prove the charge is true, then the person is acquitted of the charges. The prosecution, in most cases, prove that the accused is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If reasonable doubt remains, the accused must be acquitted. The opposite system is presumption of guilt. In many countries and under many legal systems, including common law and civil law systems, not to be confused with the other kind of civil law, which deals in non-criminal legal issues, the presumption of innocence is a legal right and of the accused in the criminal trial, and is also an international human right under the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 11. So when we're talking, I'm so tired of labels. That's not what anyone's trying to do. And it doesn't make us anti-police, and it doesn't make us anti-establishment to be open to all aspects. With that said, we also have to be careful not to disrespect the police. And most certainly when we're dealing with non-public figures, we can't be we can't be picking apart people's lives and harassing them. So I recently covered the TikTok psychic who's involved in the first defamation lawsuit involved in this case. And what's noted is that one of the friends of the victims is left out of this. And speculation is that it's because of the gag order, and that there could be other defamation suits coming for people in the way that they are presenting the friends of the victims in this case. So I'm going to stop preaching right now and get on with our show. So the next thing I want to talk about is metadata. And I'm going to bring up this clip from Steve G. And we're just going to listen to what he says, and then I'm going to show you an article. 1 second. Let me just pull that up. Bear with me. Okay.
Is the father of Kaylee Gonzalez, Steve Gonzalez, as well as their family's attorney, Shannon Gray. Steve, thanks so much for joining the program again. I made a promise to you that our audience would stay on this case and not let this case die. We had a cooling off period last week out of respect for law enforcement to bring the temperature down a little bit. What new can you tell us, Steve? I know we got this new surveillance video that was released by our digital team today. What can you tell us?
That film, to the family, we've had that film for a while. I believe the business reached out to us directly, and after they had given it to the police. So it was kind of comforting to us, because it's just two girls having a good time talking about, you know, asking about their bartender, and they're just being girls on their way to the grub truck.
Yeah, so you don't suspect that this guy, Adam, that's stated in the video is somehow a suspect or anything like that. You guys have known about this video for a while.
We have, and we asked, and we did the obvious due diligence when we looked into that, and it was pretty clear that this individual was not a part of the investigation as far as a suspect.
Good copy. So, Steve, what can you tell us about the investigation thus far? We've heard about the car details being released as well. Is there anything that we can do to get some answers for you guys so we can get this suspect, whoever it is, in custody?
They've kind of informed us through communications that they've checked all the easiest paths. So, like, if this individual had this car registered to his name and it was just something very quick that they could just look up in the area and go right to his house, they've done all the due diligence there. They've done all that. So now they're reaching out, and they're going to look to the community, see if this individual borrowed this car. You know, it doesn't appear that it's something that they have real easy access to. So he may have ran, and they really pushed the narrative saying, hey, if we can get these guys to focus on something that's really helpful, which is this car, and, you know, find out if somebody says, hey, you know, that car, that looks a lot like mine, I'm going to come forward and just volunteer my information. And then, you know, they can figure out if somebody else had borrowed it, or if it, heck, who knows?
You know, Steve, we talked about this off air. But one of the reasons why I want to bring this up is because I think it's critical to this investigation. A lot of these young people were teenagers, and there may have been some illicit activity that was minor that they would have gotten in trouble for, and it may be preventing them from coming forward. What can you tell these young people to kind of motivate them to give up some answers? Don't worry about all the petty stuff. 4 innocent lives were lost here.
Yeah, I want kids to understand that this is such a big case that these guys have their hands full. I wanted to go out there and tell everyone that we support the Gonzalez family, support the local police officers, so much so that we want them to be able to work on this case. I know that this is way over the normal workload that they normally have. Plus, they have patrols. They have to patrol now. This guy's not caught. So, you know, there was some rumors that I called these officers a coward. That was not for these officers. That was for a lawyer that was standing in between what the officers would like to release and what is actually being released. And I called that individual, and this was just about coming forward and saying that the profile is a male. You know, I feel like at a month we can rule that that's not going to hurt the case. It's pretty clear. Even, you know, the coroner said this was a very strong individual. 2 people had defensive wounds, overpowered those people. So I'm just trying to get steer the conversation into a way. So I have another son. I have another person who's going to school there, and I don't want him walking around the streets if it's not safe. So, you know, we know as a family what we're looking for. And, you know, if they see an individual looking a certain way, I'm telling my kids, you know, steer clear of that.
Steve,
but I want other families to know.
Steve, this is your first, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother, but this is your first Christmas without Kaylee. How you doing? How's your family doing?
To be honest, we're not even really going to have a Christmas because you just can't get yourself there to where it would make sense. One of my children, the youngest one, is going to go stay with some families because they're going to have the normal type Christmas.
All right, so I'm going to continue with my presentation. I have to apologize. It didn't quite touch on exactly what I wanted. I have all these playlists that I've saved over the course of my research, and I must have made a mistake on the soundbite. But my point is that Steve had mentioned that there was, where we talk about these 57 terabytes of data that the police have evidence against BK. One of the things that Steve mentioned in one of his interviews was the tilt. Actually, I know how I can show that to you. I actually have a video about it now that I realized it. Let me, I know exactly where we can find this. So let me just go to my channel. It's right here. So if you want to come back to my channel and find it, it's this one that has the princess on it. So listen to this.
So we're going to begin with this explosive clip from Cluminati's live stream. So listen fast. It's worth it.
If everything that they've talked about is true, I've been under the mindset that he left his phone in his apartment. But that's really not what they sort of portray and lay out. It's what they lay out is he had it with him. And it's like, okay, let's say he had it with him and he took pictures while he was there in the midst of this.
Oh my God.
That would be something that would not be released to the public. They wouldn't make that really known. They wouldn't have had it at the time of the PCA, and it could be the nail in the damn coffin against the boy.
Nope.
What?
Nope. It's not pictures. Holy shit balls. Steve, you are the man. Holy shit. It's not photos. He didn't take photos. Oh, I have the goose flesh. I've got the chicken skin. Steve specifically says in this interview later on, the CAS system has really impressed me. The things they're able to do with the tilting of the phone.
Right.
No matter what, if your phone is in airplane mode, which I'm guessing is probably what he did, he didn't turn it off. He's smart. Mm-hmm. With the tilting of the, like Google, right? Which you have an account, you have an iPhone account, whatever. Google always measures your movements. So like if you're running, if you're riding a bike, if you're walking, that shit is stored in your phone. That's what he was saying. By the way, the phone tilts. He's talking about the movement he made during the, by the way, the phone tilts. He's talking about the movement he made during the, holy shit. That just hit me so hard when you were talking about that. Cause I'm like, naturally I'm doing that thing where I'm like, okay, I'm tuning him halfway out because I don't think the boy took pictures, but that's just, we do our thing. That's what he is talking about. 100%.
That's not 100% solid to me until I see it laid out.
Mama J, I don't know if you can turn that off in settings, but.
Well, whether you can turn something off or on really only involves how much it actually tracks to an app. The phone actually doing the job that it does, I don't know that it ever stops. It's just how much of it does it actually display to you or provide that data for your interaction.
Exactly. People are under this assumption if they turn off their location, if they can't. So let's just think about this, right? You turn off your location services. If you really believe that your phone does not still have your location, moron.
No,
because guess what? If you call 911, they got to be able to locate you. Stop. You know what I mean? So yes, he could have turned that off in his settings. Doesn't matter.
I think you may be right with the way Steve's looking at it and what he may be aware of, right? But I would have to see it laid out in front of me.
Now, Cluminati does go on to say that this wouldn't necessarily tell the person's exact location, but what it would do is tell us the movement of the car, where it turned, when it accelerated, when it stopped.
So after this live stream, I was completely intrigued. So I did a little research and I found this article by MIT. So I really thought this was extremely fascinating. So I actually I want to read you a couple of paragraphs.
Okay, so this is MIT Technology Review. In addition to governing basics like screen orientation, the accelerometer data is widely used by apps such as pedometers and mobile games. Meanwhile, many apps often rely on advertising, which has led advertisers to search for new ways to track users. Accelerometers use technology called microelectrical magnetical systems, or MEMS. In the case of the accelerometer, tiny bars of metal move between other metal bars in response to motion, changing electrical capacitance and indicating 3D movement. A mobile researcher with Wynn Labs at Rutgers University says that the work is novel and important. Accelerometers still do not require permission to be enabled, so they can be used stealthily. I think it's great work and points out yet another reason why smartphones shouldn't be allowed easy access to accelerometer data. Other sensors in smartphones, such as gyroscopes, magnetometers, and microphones, might also have similar electronic fingerprints. It is my understanding after doing this research that these sensors within your phone could, at least with a starting point, even if the phone is in airplane mode, tell through the sensors what directions you turned, how fast you went, where you accelerated, where you stopped, and so forth. So even if the unaliver left their phone within their car, the phone would still have the data as to exactly when the car stopped and exactly when the car started again and where it moved and what direction it went. Allegedly, of course, and in my non-professional opinion.
So after I made this video, I don't know if you folks remember, or I guess he's back on YouTube now, but Get a Clue. He actually called me out on this video, and he said that he made another video that showed how this was actually a tool that the defense was going to be using to defend Bryan Kohberger. I think it'd be interesting to hear his rebuttal he gave, and then I'm going to tell you why he's wrong. Not that he's wrong. I'm going to build off of what he says and show how BK could actually, how any criminal could actually probably use this data to trick somebody. So let me, if they knew what they were doing, which we're talking about somebody who's was an expert in forensic cloud evidence. So let's just go back to my channel. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go.
The suspect was also linked to another high-profile crime involving Kylie Jenner.
Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we're discussing the IDAHO4 case again and discussing new theories on metadata and motive. And you're going to want to keep watching because when we talk about motive, I'm going to tie in a true crime story that involves none other than Kylie Jenner, and it is a triple unaliving. Her innocent name was dragged into, and I'd like to tell you the story and tie that into some of the things we were talking about when it comes to motive.
And I'm really sorry that my husband is snow blowing right now. I don't even have words.
So we're going to begin with Get a Clue. and we're starting with his Substack article. And I've linked the Substack and his YouTube channel below. Let's hear what he has to say with the metadata theory.
So I would assume they turned that over, but I don't know. I don't know if I can assume anything related to this case any longer. Can you? What is phone metadata digital evidence? Simply put, metadata is data about data. A phone's metadata describes key facts about an individual data file, such as phone calls, photographs, texts, etc. With this data, you might reveal habits, activities, and interests, or even uncover a lie. I think I'm correct when I say that the metadata will show if the battery went dead. And that's why the phone was not communicating with the network. If not that, it would show that the phone was turned off by the user by the power button, and that's why it wasn't communicating with the network. And if not that, it would show that the phone was put into airplane mode. The metadata would show that. And if not that, it would show that the phone was on the entire time then by process of elimination and also by the metadata itself. And if that's the case and it's not communicating with the network, it means that it is in an area of no coverage and therefore could not have been in Moscow and Pullman. In my opinion, this is a case breaker right here in and of itself. The state itself, this is the whole state's case right now. The state has put the phone with the vehicle. Okay, so since the phone is with the vehicle, the suspect vehicle 1 and the phone are one and the same for all intents and purposes. They're one unit. And this is per the state's case. They are one unit. Meaning, if the phone can be shown as to not being in Moscow or Pullman at the time of the massacres, because it's in a place of no cell coverage, then that means suspect vehicle 1 is not the defendant's vehicle. You don't even have to identify it at that point. And if the defendant's vehicle, therefore, is not suspect vehicle 1, as the state believed it was heretofore, then the defendant was not there during the time of the massacre. He did not have opportunity. They want this ex parte with the judge so they can say, listen, this case should not go forward. This is a travesty of justice. This is a waste of the court's time. And
okay, so I'm just going to pause here. So Get a Clue is doing a really good job, but he wasn't aware of one additional plausible possibility. Really is missing one.
So let's read this comment. The difference when you use TOCA is that you get a...
So I just want, I mean, just to state the obvious in case you don't know what's going on. So he is giving this whole speech and he's doing it in response to my review of Cluminati, basically saying that, no, this is a tool for the defense of BK, because if he shows that he has no cell phone signal when supposedly these murders happen, then Moscow, Idaho has a very strong signal in that area. So it would show that he was in a place without cell phone signal. But what's interesting is when he was calling me out reading this wonderful Substack article he wrote, somebody left a comment that throws a wrench in that theory.
A physical barrier between the phone and the signals it receives, so it really is impossible to track. Conductive material that blocks all signals. This means you can't be located and your data privacy is secure. And then he says there's a way to turn off GPS tracking, and TOCA just told us, no, the only way you can do it is to get their product or product similar to it.
Just remember there was a warrant in October for BK's Amazon searches. So I did a little Amazon search and look at all these affordable devices that block your signal. So could there be some deceit involved? Could BK be trying to trick us and say, oh, I had no signal, and really he just had his phone inside of a signal blocking pouch? Just a thought. That's sus to him. Let's talk.
Well, then I'm actually going to play the rest of this because this is interesting too. This plays into if somebody was trying to block signal using, or block who they were using a VPN. So I think this is a little bit important. Let me just play this other minute.
About online tracking and VPN. I want to bring up this article from the Medium, and I'm going to read from this article.
And then we're going to tie it back to a very recent soundbite posted on Bubbly Waters channel. So this article is titled IDAHO4 Murder Solved by 4chan Users, a deep dive. And we're not going to read the entire article. I'm mainly going to focus on 4chan, the FBI, and something called weaponized autism. The author of this piece is a professional blogger, and this is, as far as I can tell, her only post on the IDAHO4. It was posted before the arrest affidavit, and so that's what makes it even more fascinating. I'm sure that you've heard the criminal psychologist propose that a killer will return to the crime scene. Well, in the digital age, a thread on an anonymous forum about your crime is the new version of that. And then the author shows us a few of the 4chan posts and writes, "These are messages that would eventually give the detectives the name of the suspect." Not only did the poster know the details of the crime scene that only the police would know, but he also stated that he was hiding in Pennsylvania, where he was arrested. And now I'm just going to jump around here and we're going to talk about the weaponized autism. Weaponized autism is an expression referring to the impressive capabilities of socially awkward, tech-savvy internet users, typically associated with those who frequent the image boards like 4chan. Don't forget, a 4chan autistic cracked the case. How? There was body cam footage that the cops released from the night of the murders. The footage was taken at almost the same time as the slayings occurred, and at the distance, a white car near the house was noticed, and the cops were at the same time harassing some kids for booze and writing $500 tickets. Someone on the internet, not the cops, said, "Hey, what's the deal with that white car?" Then later, a chick at a gas station nearby had a video of it speeding away. Okay, and this is where things get considerably interesting. So the alleged killer, Bryan Kohberger, was found because his phone was hooked to a Bluetooth in the white Elantra at a Highway 6 gas station. His phone just happened to be on 4chan at the time because he was posting horrific details about the crime on a thread about the murders. He connected through public Wi-Fi because your phone will always search for connections if your Wi-Fi feature is turned on. A cell phone constantly connects to whatever Wi-Fi and cell tower networks it's near. It does this to constantly know its location, so whenever you need a cell tower, you have one. And whenever you want to use Google Maps or whatever, it doesn't take 5 minutes for your phone to jack into the correct GPS network. Okay, so this is one of the lines I really want to focus on. This means that they found the poster after he kept jumping VPNs while posting on the 4chan Idaho slasher thread. The author goes on to say that the FBI most likely owns the 4chan servers, and at the very least, everything posted on there is monitored by the feds and has been for at least the last decade or so. So, if the FBI owns these 4chan servers, well, just really quickly on VPNs. VPNs typically can protect your anonymity online. However, there are backdoor ways to figure out who you are via Wi-Fi and your search history through your ISO provider. Okay, and now I'm going to pull up a soundbite from Bubbly Waters channel that was recently posted. This soundbite comes from a TikTok personality who has about 100,000 followers, millions and millions of views. She doesn't typically post, or she doesn't post at all about the IDAHO4. She's typically music and politics, but that's what makes this clip particularly interesting. It went viral. She was told to take it down. Let's just hear in her own words.
That the posts that were speculated, that they were speculating that Bryan had potentially posted on 4chan Reddit, that in fact is confirmed that it was him doing that, like talking about the murders and stuff like that, and giving out information of how in fact the suspect, Bryan K., how he was in fact arrested, how that information got to police. Because so many tips were coming into the police, this one ended up being a pretty reliable source in that they gave information that nobody could possibly know except them. And I have never even made one video about the Idaho murders. I was pretty content in watching other people's TikToks just getting like facts and speculation from other creators. So anyway, I really don't care who thought it was real or fake or not. It's just, I fell into the live. I thought it was important information for other people to know, and I released it. So yeah, crazy stuff. Took him down. That's fine. No problem. I'll take him down.
So that was a super interesting
Probably should add myself to the stage. So before I move on, I just wanted to answer a few questions that were in the live stream. So if I go up to the beginning, I'll try to pull each of your questions up as I answer them. Whoops. Oh, okay. So that was the first one. So I think the reason why this weed topic has been coming up is because a lot of people have been going over the search warrant or what they obtained in BK's Pennsylvania home. And the very last thing on the list was a green leafy substance. So I would have a feeling that that's probably why everyone is talking about weed on when it comes to BK lately. And then the other question I had, get a 1046 here. That I thought was, and if I missed something, I'm so sorry, you guys. So, whoops, that wasn't it. There's no license. If there's no license plate in the photo, how can they track it? I have a few things to say on the license plate. So number one, let's just say they did get a license plate. So in Pennsylvania, you are not required by law to have a front license plate. In Idaho, you are. And some people have commented on my channel, the fine is actually pretty hefty. Some people say they enforce it. Others have commented on my channel saying it's something they don't typically enforce. So I can't tell you that either way, but I do know that in order for the license plate to be captured, according again to my viewers, I don't know this for sure. The license, from what I understand, the camera has to be placed a certain way on that post. So not your average street cam is going to get that. It has to be a very specific positioning. So if you've ever received a ticket for, I'm ashamed to say, well, I have received a ticket for running a yellow light before. So that's a very specific placement, and it's not just your average surveillance isn't going to catch that. It has to be at a certain level. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, somebody brought up, which I couldn't really dispute the other day, is somebody said, can you just, come up with some ideas? Why would somebody change their license plate randomly? Because the thing that is red flagging a lot of people is that BK applied for a new Washington state license plate in between after this crime happened and when he went home for his with his father for Christmas break. So I'm not saying it means anything. I'm just saying, think about it. What reasons could you come up with why somebody would just randomly change their plate to Washington? Because it's something you usually do when you register your car. Maybe he wanted to fit in. Maybe he just wanted to acclimate to the rest of the staff at school. I don't know. But it's something to think about because that is something that's a fact of this case. He changed plates. And then the other thing is people were wondering, did the year of the car change? Here we go. The year of the car. So I don't think that's the exact question, but that's part of the chain of questions. So the FBI specialist said that he thought it was a 2013 vehicle, I think, when they first evaluated it. And then further evaluation, I'm assuming, was of different video footage, made them hone in on a different year. But yes, when this crime initially happened, they had the public looking for a different year car. And then that was retracted and they gave another year car. And I think the people following the case assumed that was because they got better surveillance footage, but I don't know, and it's not clear to anyone. Okay, I have a lot of stuff to present to you today, so I'm just going to keep moving in. And yes, that's another. We'll see. That's the thing is it would have to do with his registration, and that's a tough one. Each state is different. It's something that would require a little bit of research to speak with authority, but it's just something that's been coming up this week. I've never really thought about. Because I know with like I have commercial plates in our state and I have residential plates. The residential plates get renewed on your birth date. The commercial plates are renewed once a year. So I actually renewed my commercial plates this year on the date I registered them last year, which had nothing to do with the date of birth of myself or anyone in my family. So there could have been some requirement. There could be an excuse. It's just something that maybe we should all research and talk about. Why did? And for his defense and for the prosecution. I'm sure it is an interesting question that both sides would want to know. Hold on. Jackie says he had to change his plates per his birthday coming up November 21st. He wouldn't want to be pulled over if they were expired. I think that that's a solid answer to the question. Let's see. He won schooling from WSU for something he was interested in. He changed plates because his plates expired 5 days after the crime. So since he lived in Washington, he needed to have plates for his new registration. That is a very informed answer to this question. So I think that maybe that this is when I polish this live stream up and I put some videos out, I'll definitely include that because we should make sure we're giving the most updated information. So the next thing I wanted to move on to is a clip from Chaos Sector. And we're going to start diving right into some evidence and some casework. I have a lot of questions about Xana and Ethan, and I don't really know where to get started. So I'm going to start with the clip from Chaos Sector, and then I'm going to add to it a couple of, again, I'm trying to bring up current things that I've been hearing in a lot of live streams lately. So let me get Chaos Sector up here. And if you don't know who Chaos Sector is, just look them up. Type in Chaos Sector IDAHO4 into your search, and you're going to find a good channel with a lot of well thought out work.
As we now know, well, we knew, but had an examining error, that Kernodle was on the second floor. This means the activity on that floor is magnified even more. What do I mean? Let's break it down. Mortensen claimed to have heard someone state, "There's someone here." Now, this would be Kernodle. But it was assumed to be Gonzalez, from Mortensen's accounts, right? Interesting. Huh. Let's see. That's a bit odd, now that we look back at the original airing of that episode. If you recall, I broke down how it made more sense that it would be Gonzalez because I assumed she was on the second floor with Mortensen, right? But Mortensen claimed she thought it was Gonzalez who made the statement, who she knew was on the third floor, right? What am I getting at here? Something that could be damaging to her accounts of what happened, that's what. Stay with me. I believe Mortensen suggested it was Gonzalez, who was on the third floor, that made the statement, "There's someone here," because it draws attention to the third floor, as opposed to the actual floor that the statement was made from, which was the floor she was on. When Kernodle is heard crying by Mortensen, they are both on the same floor. But before she is heard crying, there is no information about what activity was taking place in between that time. Kernodle's concern of a home invader apparently didn't lead to any communication, other than just stating, "There's someone here?" She isn't heard saying anything else. Meaning, there is a moment of silence on the second floor, from the time she made that statement, to the point she is heard crying? Obviously there was no emergency text being exchanged with the peers, and of course no call to the authorities. Speaking of the authorities, they did a forensic scan of Kernodle's phone, and discovered she was on TikTok around 4 a.m., right? Well, apparently there is no evidence that she became aware of an intruder while on TikTok, so we have to assume she was notifying her boyfriend. I mean, who else would she be talking to? We have to keep addressing that, because it changes the setting in the home, leading up to the attacks. But nevertheless, this span of alleged inactivity has to have more, well, activity. Based on the report, Mortensen often opened her door, which means she also often closed her door. When she heard someone state, "There's someone here," she opened her door, then closed it. Then opened it again, and heard Kernodle crying. Then, closed the door again, opened it once more, then heard Kernodle crying once more? Why does she constantly open and close her door? If you suggest she was scared, concerned, paranoid, whatever state of awareness, this would lead to calling the authorities. Or at least, inquiring about your roommates. Based on her accounts, she woke up around 4 a.m. and heard what she assumed to be Gonzalez on the 3rd floor, playing with her dog. Kernodle is also awake around this time. Soon after, Mortensen claims to have heard what she, quote, thought was Gonzalez state, "There's someone here." Mortensen told police that she did not see anything when she looked out of her bedroom for the first time after hearing the voice. Interesting, when she looked out of her bedroom for the first time after hearing the voice. So Mortensen looked out of the bedroom after hearing that statement, "There's someone here." Why would Mortensen assume it was Gonzalez making that statement? How could Mortensen even hear Gonzalez make that statement, which would obviously be very cautionary? Unless she heard that statement through her ceiling, how could she have heard that statement? It's possible to hear someone talking on a floor above you, but since the roommate is aware of a home invader, she couldn't have been talking loud enough for Mortensen to hear her one floor down. Especially if we go with the narrative that somehow this is some sort of thought to self, right? I mean, pick your poison here. Either they were literally speaking to themselves, which in most cases is considered a, quote, inside voice. Or, they were speaking to someone else. This has to be clarified, because it determines who was awake, what decisions they made regarding an intruder, and what Mortensen's interaction would be in eventually being notified about this intruder as well. Come on, this needed to be clarified, but it wasn't. If Gonzalez was talking to Mogan, we can assume she would damn near be whispering to Mogan, right? Which we know Mortensen definitely couldn't hear with her door closed. Remember, her door was closed when the statement was made, then after hearing that statement, she opened her door. These are just questions that are questioning the accounts of what led up to the murders. Another mystery, how could Gonzalez become aware of a home intruder before Mortensen did? We assume she became aware based on observation. The only way she would know there is a stranger in the home would be to physically spot them or have her door open to hear the intruder. Yet, how did the intruder travel through the 2nd floor without being detected by either strange sounds or movement by Mortensen or Kernodle, who was also awake during this time frame? Simply put, someone on the 3rd floor became aware of an intruder before individuals on the 2nd floor did. This is highly unlikely unless those on the 2nd floor were, well, sleep. But bingo, Mortensen and Kernodle were not sleep. Keep in mind, the 2nd floor is where the suspect entered the home. This is all broken down, based on the claim that it was Gonzalez who made the statement. Taking very meticulous steps through this. I hand the rest of the report over to my colleague.
Thanks. Let me touch on a few key aspects. It is likely here that Mortensen suggested it was Gonzalez, instead of Kernodle, due to proximity.
Okay, I just want to pause because I just think some of these points are just so exceptional I want to bring up. So DM says she's not sure who said there's someone here. She assumed it was Kaylee. But the confusion lies where she thought she heard Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs. So the sound quality is so poor, she couldn't tell the difference between the attack and playing with the dog. So the thought that somebody spoke, "There's someone here," which would have been a quieter statement, is not likely. She would have heard it on the 3rd floor, Chaos Sector points out. So it would very likely be Xana's voice saying that. Another thing is we've got this, Yvonne asked us, I think that the killer ordered the Jack in the Box because Ian X ate pizza at midnight. That's what X's dad said. They were home eating pizza. Why order food at 4 a.m.? A lot of people have said this too. That is definitely something not to, that's something they're going to find out in the autopsy for sure. I've really thought about the this Jack in the Box order. It's kind of hard to, it'd be very hard to orchestrate a crime and pretend that you are a DoorDash driver through their app, simply for there's so many aspects of tracking and keeping track of the driver to make sure that they're not stopping in between things, not going places. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. There was a time where I was thinking that the person who perpetrated this crime was the DoorDash driver, but after really researching it, there would be so many obstacles, and I don't know. But I'd love to know what you guys think. I'd love to know your insight. You can't beat the internet, so anything that I say, I'm just wanting you guys to build off of. But my feeling is the DoorDash driver would be a very hard thing to orchestrate. The other thing we were talking about was TikTok. So Chaos Sector brought up that TikTok use at 4:15 would have been to contact her boyfriend. One thing that Drip Drop or Crime Circus Colt has brought up to all of us and reminded us, he has a great short. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but you can go to Crime Circus Colt and watch his short on it. TikTok is a pretty invasive app, and it actually can turn itself on and do its own activity when you're not on the app. Even when the app is asleep, it can wake itself up. It can have activity on videos. I don't know how it all works, but you forego some of those rights when you sign up for that app, that they have control and access of your phone. So we can't even go off of the TikTok necessarily, depending on what it was she did on TikTok. I think before I press play, I'll tell you what lingers in my head. And I'm going to play a clip of Ethan and of Ethan's parents in a moment, a very old clip that they did on November 15th of last year, right after. I don't understand. They were awake when this happened, as far as we can tell. I don't understand if the cell phones were working, if there wasn't a cell phone or a signal jammer going on. How is it that nobody called 911? I've just never understood that. And a lot of people say, this is just, this type of unaliving is brutal and quick, and they wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily have time, but I just don't understand, so it begs the question, was there some other weapon used? Even if it was like, dare I say, speculate here and say something like chloroform, or I don't know, a stun gun or something like that. See if we have any questions. Yeah. Okay, so the Blackthorn says, if the video stream timer is on and the phone is open to TikTok, it will continue to play endlessly. The other thing I want to bring up is my husband does casual research on this case, and his research told him that Jack in the Box at that particular location stopped serving at 3 a.m. I'm not confirmed. That's actually a good point. However, I don't believe the signal jammer theory necessarily, unless it was getting turned on and turned off, because don't forget, Dylan officially stated, and it's part of our evidence, that they were texting each other, Bethany and Dylan, during this time, and texting the other roommates and not getting replies. I don't know if a signal jammer would like hold on to the text and then release it when, I don't know how that all works, but I don't know how they could text each other, or maybe this is part of the case we just don't know about. I know. But also, and we're going to talk about the target in a second. I've heard from Jules, the Jules of all trade. I listened to her show one time, and she said something interesting that stuck with me, which is those injuries could be because of rage and she was the target, or rage because Maddie was the target and Kaylee interrupted what he was doing. So it could mean different things. Okay, the drive-thru is open 34 hours. I know what you mean. Okay, that's good to know, Jennifer. And again, I shouldn't be bringing up things that I mean, I guess we could Google it real quick. We just have a lot going on. I heard that the Jack in the Box in Moscow was closed, but the Pullman wasn't. The Pullman was the one that he had heard about. we'll get some better intel on that. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit more, and then we're going to jump right to Ethan. We're going to jump right to Jim and Stacy Chapin.
The further away the statement was made, or a better term, was heard, the less awareness she would have. Here's why: because she closed her door, which indicates, in a subjective approach, that Mortensen may have not been as concerned about that statement. It could be considered, quote, indifferent. But when she heard cries, and the suspect's voice, this is when Mortensen became concerned. The intruder entered the home through the second floor. In this setting, he would be snooping around, footsteps would be heard, strange noises, heck, even his frequency could be picked up, while he walked through the home. Yes, you can detect someone, without physically seeing them. Since it was Kernodle who became aware of this intruder, this demands more concern from Mortensen on that same floor. Gonsalves would not be aware of a home intruder, before someone on the second floor. It's just common sense. The suspect would walk up a small hill, and enter the home through the sliding doors. Keep in mind, the authorities claim there was not, I repeat, was not, forced entry. Let's examine the home from the view of each victim's location. Based on this 3D layout of the home, Kernodle and Chapin are to the left side of the entrance. As displayed, it shows that Kernodle and Chapin were murdered first, then Gonsalves and Mogan. If we examine this layout, and the path the killer took, we see what was reported to have taken place that night in chronological order. Number 1, killer quietly breaks into home around 4 a.m. Number 2, murderer fatally stabs Xana Kernodle and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin to death. Number 3, killer also butchers Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan to death, in Mogan's bed. Number 4, surviving housemate Dylan Mortensen sees masked man, in the corridor between floors, who walked past her. Number 5, Mortensen tells police the man slipped out the back sliding glass doors, and fled around 4:25 a.m. Approximately, it took about 20 minutes, for the suspect to kill 4 people, which some put up a struggle. Perhaps with a gun, as one bullet could end one's life instantly. But with a knife, it takes hard work to physically stab someone to death, let alone 4 of them. Remember, some of the victims put up a fight, so even if this is one victim, this would take some time. Multiple stab wounds does not mean someone will die neither, which also brings into question, did those victims die based on multiple stab wounds? You know what, let's address that for a moment. I have no filter, so I will point this out. Autopsy reports state the victims died from stab wounds, but they don't detail where those stab wounds were. Usually, when there are homicides, especially with weapon-based fatalities, autopsies detail everything regarding the weapon used. For example, such as a death from stabbings, the autopsy report will detail where those stab wounds were located on the victim, such as on the neck, chest, arms, head, wherever they were stabbed, right?
I'm going to stop right there because I want to add something to what they're saying. One other thing that the autopsy will show, which I don't hear a lot of people talking about, is and where I got this information was True Crime Web. He's a former forensics detective, and what he said is that it's not necessarily the shape of the stab wound or the cut. I mean, those all tell different things, but what really gives away what was used as the weapon is the fragments, the forensic fragments of metal that are left behind. It's inevitable. You can't escape that. And that metal will have its own fingerprint. So you're going to know where it came from, what batch. I mean, potentially they might even know what like store or at least what company it was sold from, simply by having that fingerprint of the metal that was in there. Let's hope that was done. Because if it wasn't, 3, and again, trigger warning, 3 of these bodies were cremated. So let me just keep going.
No details of this. If they died from stab wounds, as they were found in their bedrooms, surely they would literally bleed to death, right? But let's be very careful here. If they are left bleeding to death, there is no doubt, I repeat, there is absolutely no doubt, those victims tried to survive with their last moments of life. And it's not just one victim, there are 4. Young people who have more willpower to live, more willpower to fight back. Even if they couldn't physically fight back to make a difference in their demise, surely they fought to stay alive, before that last heartbeat. There should be trails of blood on the floor, from where they were initially stabbed, to the point where they finally collapsed and passed away. Or blood on the door handle, the night post, the floor, at the edge of the bed, or the window. Areas where the victims physically would attempt to reach, fighting to stay alive. Keep in mind, the killer didn't slit their throats while they slept, negative. In that scenario, it is more likely that he could, quote, kill them while they slept, as the report claims. That's not how it played out, based on the same reports stating some of them had defensive wounds. There was physical engagement involved. Maybe not with all of them, but 2 of the 4 victims were obviously awake, which brings me back to an initial point. About them notifying their roommates. We are going in circles here. Logic, something that will never change, despite whatever scenario we face in life. But apparently, this does not exist, based on the so-called forensics of the detectives. Now, what this is indicating to me, and I'm pretty sure you have the same hunch, is that perhaps they did not die from being stabbed. Or, they were never stabbed to begin with. Perhaps.
I love Chaos Sector, but you have to also understand that these are investigative journalists. So to put into context, sometimes they start coming out with theories in their videos. They're not necessarily evidence-based. They're speculating what it could mean, what evidence could indicate towards. So I'm going to stop there, and we're going to hear from Stacy and Jim Chapin, because there's always question about where Ethan was found. There is lots of question about where the bodies were when the police initially came, or when the friends came over in the morning. And I think that this is the one place where we get clarification before the gag order. And I refer to this interview a lot. It's on king5.com, and it was done on the 15th of November 2022. I've played this probably in at least 8 different videos on my channel. Oops, that's not it. Hold on. Okay. I'm trying to get this full screen here.
Can you first just tell me how you guys are doing?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
It's not something you ever expect to hear, ever. Like the call we took from our kids who were there, and you just expect to outlive your kids. Honestly, I don't know. We're just trying to process it. It's not a call that you think that you're going to have to speak with a funeral home directors and the FBI and have it hit national news. I mean, we're more concerned, Ethan was a triplet, and that's a big thing. There's a couple of things. Ethan was a triplet, and that's the most important thing for us, because we have these other 2 kids that are.
Okay, so the important part is coming up. I don't want to cut her off, though, because I have great respect for these families.
Very impacted by this, and they need to be lifted up and cared for. And I think the other thing that's important to us is the reason why we've agreed to do this is, number 1, you're local. And number 2, it's important for us to get Ethan's story out. We don't really want anybody else representing him. And it's hard to have people speaking on his behalf. So we think it's best for us to do this.
And you did say, of course, that he was a triplet, and looking through the pictures you sent, like you said, they seem to be always together. I mean, did they all go to high school and then college together also?
Elementary,
Yep.
High school, everything, college, they all went to the same university. Yeah, I mean, everything. We travel, we play, we hike, everything we do is all of us together. I mean, we're a pretty tight family.
Did you say that they were the ones that called you about this happening?
All right, I just want to bring up, this is where she says, where she directly says that they were found together in the same room.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then are you guys all back together now?
We are.
Yeah, we're in our home in Northern Idaho, our summer home. We're going to be here for a couple days just to regroup a little.
Yeah.
And can you just tell me a little bit about Ethan? I think I was told he was very athletic. I think he played, was it basketball and tennis or basketball? Just tell me a little about his interests. What did Ethan like to do?
Anything.
You
name it, he played it, literally. Yeah. I think we just watched a thing from the university, spike ball champion, volleyball champion. I mean, right? I mean, he just literally would play and do anything. He played club soccer for years. He played, you know, we traveled, all of our kids are athletic and we traveled every weekend, and he was involved in anything. He just literally, he was, I don't know.
He just loved to play everything.
He did.
All
he
the
loved
sports.
sports. I mean, our love language with him was sports. Like, I literally watched, I follow like NFL football so that I can literally have a conversation with Ethan, because I could, you know, send him a text message, and, you know, that was you know, I don't know, just everything. I don't know, that and country music. I mean,
yeah,
you know, he's funny. He literally, we were trying to have a conversation really quickly about our favorite memory. We can't come up with one. I mean, he literally lit up every room, everybody. He was friend to all. He was an incredible human. I mean, one of a kind, popular. I mean, not that that matters, but I don't know. I think we believe that if you literally asked anybody in his life, anybody, they would tell you the same exact thing. I mean, I just got an email from his counselor at college, and he just said, I loved that kid the minute I met him. He literally walked in my office last week, and it was just simply to say hi. He had a huge smile, the whole, like, you know, the feeling inside of the office changed just because he walked in. Mm-hmm. He always had something funny to say. That's been something we've talked a lot about. I mean, he was definitely the comedian of the three kids. He kept us all, I mean, we have the funniest videos of him.
He's the kind of kid that everybody wanted to be around. You know, he was just a good kid.
He's a good kid.
That
kind to all.
Didn't deserve what happened.
No. Oof.
And wasn't he going to school to study? It was something to do with sports, wasn't it?
Sports management, I think. I don't know the technical title of it. But yeah, I mean, we told him he should go be a teacher and a coach. I mean, he was incredible the way he worked with kids, and he refereed youth basketball on the weekends in Mount Vernon. You know, I don't know, he touched a lot of people. I mean, it's the amount of support that we've seen so far has been incredible. Right? Yeah. Our neighbors, everybody, it's incredible. I mean, we have messages from people that just are like, I knew him and he was incredible. Our daughter knew him, and all she talked about was how great he was. I mean, it's a huge loss. We were at Parents Weekend last weekend with them, and Jim and I left that weekend, and as we pulled out of Moscow, we literally were like, we've done it. We've literally done it as parents. We've created 3 incredible humans that will go on and have something great to offer to this
Okay, here's
world. Honestly, all 3 of them. We literally had a conversation that we will no longer have to worry about these kids because we did it.
What way, people can support you guys right now?
It's an interesting situation because in all of your hardships in life, whatever you're going through, there's always an out.
Just so you know, just on another note, somebody in the comments had asked, or we mentioned 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I believe it was Devil Doll 666. This is the quote that everybody's talking about. This is the one interview she says that is right here. This isn't what I played it for, but I want to show you guys.
Outcome, you get through it, right? I don't know, whatever it is. This is something you wake up and you realize it's never going to go away, and it's very different. It's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I can tell you that. We're all.
And I guess
it's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I can tell you that. We're all.
And I guess just during this time, like I said, you guys seem very tight knit. Are you just what's going forward look like for you? I know that's a hard question right now, but I know it seems like you guys are really there supporting each other through this.
I think one of the first things that, when we got Maisie and Hunter, one of the first things, that came to me is that our life has literally taken a left turn, and I don't know how that's going to affect us, but we will not let this sink us or sink our kids, because if anything, they have to go on and shine Ethan's bright light on their own.
I think that's the questions I have right now, unless there's anything else you guys wanted to add.
Kids, do you want us? Our kids are here watching. Do you guys have anything you want to add? Hunter, Maisie? He was their number 1, and that's going to be a hard loss for both of our kids. Both Maisie and Hunter. He was kind of each of their number 1. So it's going to be hard just for the 3 of them without him now that they're 2. We've gone from 3 to 2, and it's going to be hard for the 2 kids to figure out how to live life when you've spent 20 years as 3, and now they have to figure out how to be 2 and carry, I don't know. It's terrible. It's important for us. The reason we've agreed to do this is there's some misinformation out there, and that's been hard for us. And that's why we, as a family, talked about it and agreed to do this, because the things that are being said are 100% not true. There's not drugs involved. There's not some weird love triangle. Ethan stayed the night at his girlfriend's house, who was one of 5 girls who lived in the home. And it's just important that people let the criminal part of it try to work itself out, and that these kids, all of the kids were just really good, great kids. So, the light of the school, everybody knew them.
One of them, I believe, was his girlfriend was also killed. Is that correct?
Yes, Xana. Yeah, they were in the same room.
Okay, let's see.
I think that one of them, I believe, was his girlfriend was also killed. Is that correct?
Yes, Xana. Yeah, they were in the same room.
One of them, I believe, was his girlfriend was also killed. Is that correct?
Yes, Xana. Yeah, they were in the same room.
And I think that.
Okay, so let's stop there, because those are 2 things that just keep coming up, questions that keep getting answered, especially because there's a lot of new people covering this case. That's only said in one place before the gag order. So I do think that it's good to have now that you've had this interview, maybe you can refer back to it if you do have this question. And I was just seeing if I missed anything in the comments. So I'm going to pull up another clip now. I'm trying to make these transitions better. That's why I keep putting on the music and putting up a picture. So I'm trying to get better at this, you guys. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to show you is probably going to be a little bit, I'm going to talk about the tunnels, and I'm sorry I'm bringing this up, but it just keeps coming up again and again. And I just want to talk about them because there are some misunderstandings about what the tunnels could be. And there is also misunderstanding about what the relevance is. And so a lot of people have criticized Crime Circus Colt regarding their coverage of the tunnels. But I'm going to start with his coverage because after he talks about the tunnels, he also talks about the placement of this home on the university. And I'm going to tie it all in. So let's just start with Drip Drop.
For evidence. They never even removed it. They just decided to let it be destroyed with the house. So we don't know how good this investigation really was. We don't know if they looked in every nook and cranny in this house. I doubt it. Let's go into Kaylee's bedroom here. You know Kaylee's bedroom was worth investigating extra. And it made me sick to my stomach in the demolition video when we could see Kaylee's bedroom from across the street. That was alarming. So here we are inside. You can see the sliding glass door that led to the balcony where the perpetrator could have allegedly potentially entered that home. Remember, sometimes detectives get tunnel vision and they think their initial theory is the right one, so they just roll with it and they force puzzle pieces to fit together even when they don't fit. Because of ego, it can be hard for someone to admit they were wrong in the first place. I've been wrong. I've had some ego checks along this investigation. I may not be the best guesser in the world. Maybe one of you watching this program right now is a better guesser than me. But you know it's possible somebody accessed Kaylee's bedroom from the balcony. And I've previously told you multiple ways that could have happened. And I'll further discuss that in a future episode. But as for now, let's check out this window. Directly below this window is where we saw the access point as seen here. That cutout in the wall is super suspicious because obviously it's not in Kaylee's bedroom, it's directly below Kaylee's bedroom. And we are not even going to enter Maddie's bedroom right now out of respect. Destroying that house was disrespectful. Here at Crime Circus, we show respect. These victims deserve a lot more respect. Yeah, they do. And that goes for Dylan and Bethany as well. They deserve respect. I mean, just think about it. Would you want to call Moscow PD?
No.
We've seen what they do to college students in that town. And that's why my next episode was supposed to be on police corruption. I've uncovered a lot of things about them, and I'm continuing to uncover more things as each day goes by. If I lived in that area, there's nothing that could make me call 911. That would be a terrifying choice to make. Remember the Banfield boys? They were ticketed $500 each.
Oh my God.
That is a crime. But that's not what this video is about. Now, moving right along. Let's go back outside of the house and look at some more demolition footage. This is filmed from across the street where the intelligent people with high IQs were standing. What do we see here? Well, I'll tell you the location of what we're seeing here. This is right over here in the area where I told you there may be a secret door. And for a refresher, for those of you that forget, or maybe this is your first time watching Crime Circus ever, And if it is, leave me a comment down below and let me know it's your first time here. And to the longtime viewers, shout out to you. I'm so happy you're here. This is the spare bedroom down on the bottom right floor of the house. This was apparently a vacant room for humans, other than it being a storage facility such as golf clubs, a mattress, and some other stuff that we're not sure what's even in there. Remember the potential doorknob? Okay, let's go back to the demolition footage. And now you have a better idea of the exact area we're looking at here. What do you know? We keep on guessing, and we keep on guessing right. That's the door right where we expected to see it. And for weeks, trolls have been leaving me comments saying how embarrassed I'm going to be when the house is demolished and there's no access points to any tunnels. What do you think this is? Right where we saw the doorknob in the picture from within the house that they wiped from the internet, but I have. The one that I obtained from the last standing realty website that mistakenly kept it up. To give you a better perspective, I'm going to put a picture on the screen with an arrow. Maybe this will help you. This is exactly where this is. Before the house was destroyed, after the house is destroyed. This is no laughing matter. Where does that lead? We don't know. Is it a crawl space? Newsflash, there's no reason that a crawl space would be there underneath a concrete foundation. This is scary. You know it is. I had a pretty good hunch when they demolished this house. More clues would be revealed. Clues they didn't think we'd pick up on. It's no wonder why they told certain individuals to stand on the side street, because they never thought we'd see this and they never wanted us to see this. Luckily, there were other viewing points and people were smart enough to get footage of this. And you can see these two individuals right here acting super suspicious, trying to block the cameraman. That group of shady individuals right there, they were trying to block the cameraman's view. Obviously, they could have been standing anywhere on that property, and they chose to stand in the direct line of sight. So that alone is super sus, just the way they were acting. Obviously, they could see it too, and they probably didn't know what to make of it. They were probably confused, talking amongst themselves, wondering, are we supposed to destroy that other part of the house? We didn't know the house was that big. Where does that hole lead to? We don't know. But I have uncovered a sewer network that leads directly to the crime scene, right here in the side street that goes up and down the street in between the apartments and the house. As you can see on these lines right here, you've got pink and yellow lines. And as you can see over here on this little diagram that tells you what's what, look at these two lines. I personally can't even see a difference between these two. And we know it's one of those. So which one is it? Please let me know. Maybe my eyesight is failing, but these two things look identical. Why couldn't they just make one of them blue or one of them green or something? This is super confusing, but we know there is a little sewer system going right in between the crime scene and the house. And what do you know? That little access point goes directly into that suspicious little hill behind the house, just like I told you it was suspicious. It was not natural. No. We've got to get to the bottom of this and take a look at this aerial footage a little later on when they've even destroyed that little section of the wall. Yeah.
So I want to bring up something. JB Gunner called out Drip Drop. I heard in one of his live streams saying, oh, Drip Drop changed the resolution on his photograph and made it look like it was darker there. I don't think that's what we're looking at. I mean, to me, I've actually saw another, I've seen other angles of this photo. It actually looks like something was draped over that area. So, oh, I have so much to say about the tunnels. Okay, so I'm going to show you something right here. So these tunnels have been presented to me in numerous different ways. At first, they were steam tunnels because the city of Moscow and the university use these tunnels to heat the sidewalks. They use biomass to create heat in the city. And they do this through steam heat. This is how they heat houses. They keep their sidewalks ice-free. And those tunnel systems don't actually go to the King Road home. So, and plus they're not necessarily accessible. And then a lot of people bring up the tunnels in New York City because if you're from the East Coast, you've probably heard stories about these tunnel, clubs and stuff like that. these tunnels aren't the same thing either. They don't have that type of tunnel, as far as I know, under Moscow. But there were two other types of tunnels that somebody brought up that I thought would be plausible, just something we should consider, which is there are mining tunnels. I think we can kind of rule that out because in all of this time, if there were mining tunnels right under that house, it is presumed that some local would have came out and said that already. But the reason I'm showing you this map up here is because last night I heard a girl speculating and showing this video from Crime Circus Cult saying that this is part of the Underground Railroad. And of course, that made me dive right into it because I come from New England. Our large old houses are part of the Underground Railroad. And if you don't know what that is, that was helping African Americans come north where where the laws would protect them from being indentured servants, slaves. And so the Underground Railroad was to help slaves come north in the US and up into Canada where they were exempt from all laws even. And so I don't know if Moscow, Idaho was part of that. So I looked up this map and I don't see the Underground Railroad going. Let me see if I can zone in on one of these. It says the Underground Railroad. Let me pull this up. I mean, it doesn't look like it goes further west than Texas and Jefferson City right here. I mean, again, you can't beat the internet. I'm posing it to you guys just to bring it up. Have you heard of the Underground Railroad in Moscow? And let's just say if there was the Underground Railroad, what that would implicate is that there are hidden rooms inside this house. So just for entertaining the theory, I decided to pull up the tax card. And so I wanted to see the age of the house because that could tell us. Now, we saw the house demoed before I pulled it up. We saw the house demoed and a lot of us were like, oh, that house is kind of junk. It looks like it's poorly made. But what we saw being torn down was a new addition to the house. So those pergo floors, those 2x4s, that insulation you saw, that wasn't from 100 years ago. But the main part of the house could potentially be very old. The part that Kaylee and Maddie would have had their bedrooms on the top of. And so I thought and we also know that the university president lived there as a child. And so he must be, I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. I think he's around probably 60. So it's potentially a possibility. So what I did was I tried to grab the tax card on this, and it could be my ignorance because I'm from a different state, but I'm gonna show you what I found. So this is the tax card for the property. And I can't find an age on here. But one thing that we could presume is that the house is at least 60 years old. And if it is older house, what that door could actually be is possibly a root cellar. And if you saw some of the comments I was putting up before, one of the people in the live chat was suggesting this could be an electrical component, or access to electrical panels, which I will propose to my husband, who's a general contractor. But when he initially saw it, he did point out that the house was definitely built at different stages, and the older part of the house could possibly have a root cellar. It's definitely not a crawl space, as Drip Drop said, because of the foundation. And I'm just gonna see if I had any more info on that. I wanted to show you. Oh, okay. Yeah. So while I pull up the next clip, again, I'm just going to put up a little banner while I do so. I'm trying to keep my live stream more professional. Not working. Okay. Here we go. So I'm bringing up a little more crime circus. I feel like Drip Drop has really been attacked in these last few weeks. He hasn't put out any videos, but he had, amongst some things that were controversial, he has some incredibly good points. And I really just want to show this clip. And then I'm going to show you an incredible article, which I just think it just takes my breath away. Let's go for it.
22 Queen Road, the crime scene.
Oh my God.
The first house on the right from the president's house is the crime scene. The house that he lived in as a boy. Oh boy. And right over here is Sigma Chi. And you all know about Sigma Chi at this point. If you don't, I'm going to link some videos for you down below because this is a really long ongoing series that I've been doing into Bryan Kohberger.
Sorry, I'm bringing myself on. Somebody said in the comments that Drip Drop has made anti-Catholic statements. If you could type what he said, because I haven't heard that, but I would like to know. We want to know.
If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you've been watching this show for a long time, that's crazy. Thank you. And if you support and donate, wow. My mind is blown away, and you really do make me feel like I'm living in the upside down world at the Stranger Circus. Back to this video. We cruise right on by Sigma Chi, right here, and the first and only house, the only single family residence we can see is the crime scene. How crazy is that?
Crazy.
It's so sad to see it all boarded up like that. I remember taking drives around this neighborhood on Google Maps prior to them boarding it up, and it was a lot nicer to look at. You could see inside the windows.
What?
Now it's just extra creepy. And I really don't think they should be keeping the crime scene in that condition, but nobody asked me. So I remember taking drives around this neighborhood on Google Maps prior to them boarding it up, and it was a lot nicer to look at. You could see inside the windows.
What?
Now it's just extra creepy. And I really don't think they should be keeping the crime scene in that condition, but nobody asked me. So let's get back to this map. We're going to cruise back up here, right back past Sigma Chi. And this carefully thought out cutout opening right here, you can see the crime scene, as I already showed you. What are the odds that they would cut these trees and bushes so low that you could perfectly see that house from this road? Specifically, so anybody driving by on their morning or afternoon routine could always keep an eye on that house. Remember, they didn't know if the house was targeted or the occupants were targeted. I think it's safe to say the house was targeted.
There are 2 points we're going to talk about here. So we'll leave off at the house was targeted and we'll continue. But first, we're going to talk about the fact that this house was visible from so many areas. And again, I know I am constantly talking about the demolition of this house, but it's because it really bothers me, like anyone else following this case. It doesn't make that much sense. So let's look at this. So this is an article that is supposed to explain to us why the house was torn down, which I think is the exact same argument why it shouldn't be torn down. Like Drip Drop just said, it's visible from every angle. The point is that the house was the target. And this article just proves it. This article that's supposed to make us understand why the house is being torn down actually does the opposite. And I'm going to read it to you. A constant reminder. Home where the University of Idaho students were killed is demolished. And so Moscow, Idaho. Media police and construction workers and neighbors watched in silence Thursday as the creaking and crashing noises from the track hoe tearing down the home where the students were killed at least last year echoed through the streets of Moscow. The home at 1122 King Road was destroyed within 90 minutes. Crews began their work at 6:30 a.m. and were finished by 8 a.m. The excavator clawed at the front doors of the home, revealing stairs and doorways inside. It began clearing the first set of debris out of the way and loading it onto multiple dump trucks, which quickly backed in and out of the property to drive away to a narrow road just behind the campus. As a track hoe broke into the second half of the home, the walls fell and dust flew around the air. The upstairs bedrooms with white walls near the balcony were exposed with what happened to them to be, exposed with what happened to be an empty closet. All of a sudden, the home creaked, slanted to the right, and crashed to the ground. The sound was heard across campus. A memorial with candles and teddy bears still sits at the rocks at the front of the house, untouched by construction workers. It will not be removed. Even when the property becomes a vacant lot, university spokesman Jody Walker said that this site, 2 hours after the home fell, the area was almost unrecognizable as crews finished clearing the debris. Okay, here we go. The demolition of the house, donated to the university after the student's death, was allowed by the prosecution and the defense, according to the release. So sorry, I'm doing bad. According to the release from the University of Idaho, the university planned to demolish the house in August, but the demolition was delayed until winter break, so students would be gone. The FBI. Here we go. We're going to go to, okay. The families have said that they believe it is important for a jury to be able to see the house and certain vantage points from the inside and the outside, like Drip Drop just showed us. The Gonzalez family attorney, Shannon Gray, also said in a statement that the home is one of the most crucial pieces of evidence in the case, and that there are still evidentiary value to keeping it up. They also started an online petition to protect the home, signed by more than 5,000 people. And not just them, T-Rev started one that got signed by 8,000 people. It wasn't happening in a vacuum. Here's the other half. Others believe that it is just a grim reminder of the tragedy that happened in a close-knit town. It's a constant reminder. The area is very dense with students living all around it and living with it, walking by it, being part of it. You can see it from campus, Walker said. That's the point. That's the whole point. That's the point that Drip Drop was showing us. The reason why the kids can see this house all the time and it's a grim reminder is because the house was an unsafe home, for, allegedly, my opinion, appeared to be an unsafe home for young ladies to be living in with no window treatments. There are cutouts that specifically give angle to that home. It just does. I do feel that this house, allegedly, my own opinion, could be involved in another lawsuit because we know the right to sue the city of Moscow and the university has been held by two of the families, Maddie and Kaylee's parents, in the event that they see wrongdoing or something wrong. They've reserved that right. And so if this house is the biggest piece of evidence in this trial, it could also be the biggest piece of evidence in those trials as well. So I'm not making allegations. I'm just saying, read between the lines. Sorry to preach. And we have a little bit more. So we're just going to finish off this video.
You can't see any other single family home residences from this road. It's directly in between two fraternity houses, 3 technically, because right up here, you've got another fraternity house, Alpha Gamma Delta. So you're right in between all the fraternities, and you're within walking distance to the president's house, which is less than 1,000 feet away. And for some reason, about 6 years ago, they decided to clear this lot. It used to be all surrounded by trees. It was very private, scenic. You couldn't see the neighbors. It was probably a wonderful place to reside. But somebody thought it would be a good idea to keep that house wide open so you could see it from all angles, making it super dangerous for young college girls to be living in that home. And they usually didn't even use blinds. So when they were showering or changing, a peeping pervert could look right in the windows. And we've all seen handprints on the windows, as if a peeping pervert had been looking in. Inside looking? Yeah, remember that screen name? Do you remember?
We're not going to take
Inside looking. And do you remember when Brent Kopaka said?
All right, we're going to stop there. I want to point out for my audience, I hope if you haven't seen the video I made, I just want to point out to you, Drip Drop, in my opinion, is a satire channel. And so although Drip Drop does seriously report on true crime, he is doing comedy. And he is also bringing up different levels of irony, particularly with the way that the mainstream media manipulates things. So I take everything Drip Drop says with a grain of salt, and I try to determine if he is giving tips or if he's promoting satire. So it's not coming out. I'm not saying this eloquently, but I hope you, anyway, I just want to get that thought out. So I wasn't planning on doing this, but I have on my list one other thing that I really want to go over with you guys today because we have enough people here. So I recently did a video on, I recently did a video on the 2020 interview, Horror in Idaho, which was the first interview with the families and friends after the massacre. And in this interview, there's a lot of controversy because people feel that Kaylee and Xana's friend, said that there was some incident that caused her to check on Kaylee at 10 a.m., either call her or send her a message. So in the interview, she clearly states 10 a.m. Now that part was heard by, I've had dozens and dozens of people corroborate that they heard 10 a.m. in that interview. I heard it. Chaos Sector heard it. Chaos Sector made a video about it, but it's no longer there. And the actual 2020 interview I heard originally on YouTube, you can no longer find it in its entirety on YouTube. You can only find it off YouTube, on Hulu, and on the ABC website. And on those websites, the 10 a.m. has been edited out. So I'm going to play it for you, but I actually have a new theory on this that I've been researching, not really researching, but thinking on, that one of my commenters brought up. So I'm just going to play it really quickly. It's just a small clip. Kind of corroborated something that I've been saying under 10 seconds. So I am so accustomed to these little split second hits and like clips. And I have little tricks that I do to align things so you can't quite tell when I've moved the camera or taken a different angle. So yeah, but let's look at it again from that perspective. Let's see if the frame changes.
Blame it. For sure. I mean, it didn't make any sense.
See?
Right
See,
there.
she was okay.
Right there, it changed. Did you see it?
Do it again.
Okay. That's why it zoomed in, is they make it look like it's for effect, but it's because it got edited.
For sure. I mean, it didn't make any sense. See, she was okay.
There, zoomed in. Do it one more time. Try to not.
See, she was okay. I didn't blame it. For sure. I mean, it didn't make any sense.
There and boom.
See, she was okay.
I don't know.
Well, they didn't give us, it went from the woman's face, the reporter, the interviewer, to her. And I think in between, I
saw
like
three
they
frames.
went mid-sentence when they cut to her.
I definitely see the mid sentence. I saw 3 frames there. So I saw the first one where they got back to the reporter, then they cut back to her, and she was in a full screen. And the way that I see that is by looking at the eye level. And that's also how you line them up. But you can see her face order, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3.
Yeah.
So that's 1, 2, 3 I see there. So the cut would have been in between frame 2 and frame 3.
Right. Yeah, I think.
Okay. So back to this 2020 interview. Here's another plausible possibility that could be why we're seeing this edit. So, and again, I don't know what's going on. We may never know. And well, we might know at trial. But when this interview came out, they weren't telling us any new information. It was basically, you know, it was exciting, but we knew we weren't going to learn any new information. Could it be that the edit, whether on purpose or by accident, the original edit on 2020 implied that Katie was calling due to commotion at the house? And after the fact, they decided that edit was presenting contrary to what actually happened, so they edited it out. So could it be that originally the way they edited Katie made it sound like she wasn't just calling to say, you know, how's it? I wanted to see if my friend was okay. Yeah. So anyway, it could have been the original edit, and they realized their mistake in editing and then came back and took it out afterwards. It's literally the only other explanation I can find, other than her literally saying that she was alerted to something at 10 a.m. and called her friend, which contradicts what we understand from the PCA, which was that DM and Bethany, sorry about the names, guys, that DM and BF were not awake until like 11:58. So that's why it's important. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to bring that part up as well. Okay. I'm just going to put a banner up. I have one more thing to show. Okay. So I don't know if you guys are going to be okay with this, but I have something important that I want to share with this live stream, something really fascinating. Let me just put my thingy up. Okay, guys. This is blowing my mind, and I am not a true crime podcaster. I've covered the IDAHO4. I'm learning how to properly cover legal proceedings. So, but I can't help it but share this with you because these families need our help spreading this word. This is just terrible. I'm not going to say it in my own words. I'm just going to show you guys.
This football game, three buddies got together to watch this football game, a Chiefs game. Missing for 3 days. Police find bodies in the backyard. What in the world? I know family is demanding answers. Are we learning anything new at this hour about this case?
You know, Marky, this is just a really shocking case. In fact, we have reached out to police who say first and foremost that this is not a homicide case, but a death investigation. Police going on to say there have been no signs of foul play at this time. But family and friends say that these three men and how they died, it does not add up.
I'm furious. Everybody's furious. Nobody believes this story.
Jennifer Marquez said her 37-year-old son, David Harrington, went to a friend's house to watch the Kansas City Chiefs game on Sunday, January 7th, but he never came home. 2 days later, on Tuesday, there still had been no word from Harrington or his friends, 38-year-old Ricky Johnson or 36-year-old Clayton McGinney. Friends and family say they made several attempts to contact the homeowner who hosted the football gathering, but they could not get a hold of them. The fiance of one of the men then went to the home, knocked on the door to no avail, and then broke into the house. She reportedly found one of the bodies and called police. Then when police got to the scene on Tuesday night, they found 2 more bodies. Now, the homeowner reportedly told police that the men then froze to death as temperatures dipped below freezing in the area. The Kansas City police say they are currently waiting for the medical examiner's cause of death for the 3 men, and Marquez says that her family will never be the same.
It's a huge loss. He's everything. He is a brother. They are missing him, and they are brokenhearted.
Devastating for that mother right there. But at this time, no arrests have been made. Again, police emphasize that there are no signs of foul play at this time.
Sorry, I don't, my internet kicked out. Okay, so I just want to talk about this. What could possibly have happened to these guys? And you guys had some great points about Dylan and Bethany. We can go back to in a second, just while we're on this thought. So Tara says, it's bizarre. The only thing I can think of is that they were all so drunk that they passed out and froze. I don't know. I just think that these men in the prime of their life, 30 feet from their car, how do you freeze to death? I mean, like, I think of being outdoors and like survival things, like how would you survive in freezing cold? But I mean, if you're at the point where you think that death is imminent, there's literally a neighbor 15 feet from this guy. Their cars were right there. Their cell phones were in their hands. They could have called their wives. And I don't know if they actually stated this in the case, but one of the wives, you know, this guy he was reading the messages that said read. They knew he received them. So she went to where her husband's car was at this guy's house. She knocked on the door and he didn't answer. Then she broke in a window, announced that she was there, came into the house, went through the back door and found her husband frozen to death in the backyard. And then while they're there, they called the police. All right. The police came while they're there after she busted in the window. He finally, when he sees the police, comes out of the house in his boxers with a glass of wine. And he's like, yeah, you know, yeah, basically didn't say anything. And so his lawyer came out and said, well, he doesn't go into the backyard. He might have pets, but he didn't let the pets out the backyard. He lets them out the front yard, which doesn't make sense because your dog could get hit by a car or is pooping in the front yard, not to be gross. But even so, if you're going into the front yard, you're going to see the cars of these men who are frozen in your backyard in your front yard. So it's bad either way. And the worst part is that the police are saying there's no foul play, which of course they could be doing to not spook the person, but he has already rented U-Hauls and he's been clearing out his house. And so there's all sorts of crazy rumors going on around TikTok. People are saying this guy, you know, allegedly, only my opinion, all of that. Allegedly, people are saying he's like this, he could have done some sort of crazy science experiment on him. I mean, the thing that comes to all of our minds is, could it be fentanyl? You know, could there be other drugs laced with something? Who knows? You know, but to think that all of them could have been succumbed to the cold is unacceptable. And the family needs to spread the word. So if you could tell people about this story, share this story, mention it on your social media. They're just small town folks. They're just regular people, and they're the patriarchs of their families, fathers, sole providers of their income. These men are gone, and they want answers. And so anyway, I really want to put this story out there. And again, I'm not a true crimer. It's just there are a few things that really touch me. Another one is the Donna Cross story. If you guys haven't looked into that, actually, I really want to show this to you guys. So I am. Hold on. Yeah. The only thing is like, I know that there are some things that dissipate within several days in your body. And that's the scary part. Like, some things they don't even test for. That's right. I heard that development, Mrs. Smith. Thank you for pointing that out. So I misspoke earlier. The dogs were at his father's house at the time. Thank you. That was the second update. I told you guys the first one. Yeah, I know, but I think that there's also a flip side to that coin, which is we really did. The police have a lot of extra liabilities in the last few years put on them. And I mean, certainly if you look at, I'm not going to name any cities, but there's certain cities you can look at, and it's very obvious the police force has to be very careful what they investigate for liability reasons. Good point. Yeah, we've got the hair follicle sample, Beth. Thank you. Beth, you watch a lot of, I know you're pretty smart on this stuff. I see you in these live streams. Yeah. Right, Tara. Hold on. I mean, I guess frozen to death is a weird. I mean, you don't know if that's a metaphor, something metaphorical, or if it's actually frozen solid. Because when I think of frozen to death, I think of someone succumbing to the elements. So that would mean that their body had to be below a certain temperature. So certainly 40-degree weather would kill somebody if they couldn't keep warm. But frozen to death, I don't know, again, if that's like a metaphor or actually that's what they mean. That's a good point. I think I'm very careful with my words, because the last thing I'm going to get into is a debate about like anything to do with politics on this channel. I love all of my subscribers. I do not wish to piss half of them off by talking anything about politics, but but police have to be very careful with added liabilities in the last years. I don't know. I can't speak for every police force, but certainly a lot of the larger police forces have had to rethink the way that they investigate, or the amount that they investigate. So who won the football game? I don't know, but actually I'm going to bring this up because I just feel chatty for you guys. So I've been watching The Hypes, and if you haven't heard of this podcast, it is phenomenal. It was with Travis Kelce and his brother, and Travis Kelce plays for the Chiefs. So I'm kind of like an honorary Chiefs fan recently. I'm not a Swiftie, but I think the story about Taylor and Travis coming together was adorable. And so anyway, I don't know who won the game, but the Chiefs did. Oh. Okay, so that can tell us how hypothermia is. Now, that's a great question. I don't know. As of last night, I didn't hear that because that was when I really decided I wanted to report on it. Was last night. Somebody said something else, and then I saw the family come on, and it wrenches your heart. They just said, look, all we're asking is, could you just spread the word? This isn't getting attention. It took a month for them to actually come on. This wasn't a playoff game. This was like a regular season game. So this is like a month ago. And it's taken this long for anyone to even talk about it. So that brings up one other thing I want to show you guys. Give me one quick second. I'm going to bring it up for you. Hold on. So I really wanted to show you this case. The problem is that I don't want to, I've heard about it through live streams, and I want to show you an updated clip. What I'm getting at is I think I want to show you this Jules video. I don't really show a lot of Jules videos, but I think that she probably is going to have, it's too long. Let's go with this news clip. I want to add a couple things to this case that clearly the mainstream media isn't reporting on. So the first thing is they say she was discharged from the hospital. And factually, that is true, but they didn't quite elaborate on the circumstances. She had brain surgery, and she was waiting for a bed to open up at the rehab center. So she's in the hospital, checked into the hospital, waiting for a bed to open up at a rehab center. And initial reports said, the hospital said that she denied care and checked herself out, so they called the police to come drop her off. This particular day in Missouri was incredibly cold. There was snow coverage on the ground that day because the search parties were showing pictures of it. And what they didn't show in that is they actually made an arrest of somebody who they believe possibly has been seen with her body in the back of his pickup truck on one of the trail cams. And this story developed so quickly. But I just want to bring this case up too, because if we're talking about true crime and I can do any good with this live stream, it might be to spread information for families and victims, and just giving, you know, it's hard to get people to pay attention to anything. So if I have a live stream, I just want to bring up these cases just because these families need our help. They don't want their loved ones forgotten. And yeah, so I just thought I'd share these with you today. And with that said, I'm really grateful that you joined me today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you're enjoying some respite on your Sunday before the busy week starts. And all of this live stream is just inspired in hope for justice for the IDAHO4. So peace, and God bless you, and have a good day. Thank you for being here.